Big story that we're tracking on WION at this hour. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has said that he is pretty alarmed by the fast rising coronavirus fatality rate in the country. In a meeting with senior government officials, Vladimir Putin said that the authorities should increase the circulation of the country's Sputnik V vaccine. Russia is nearing the 2 million mark in terms of cases and has reported over 34,000 deaths due to COVID-19. The country has one of the highest number of coronavirus infections in the world after the United States, India, Brazil and France. However, critics have accused the government of hiding the real number of cases.
Сложный. Количество новых случаев выявления болезни растет, мы это видим по цифрам. И, к сожалению, растет и число тяжелых осложнений. И самое тревожное, повышается уровень смертности. И, конечно, ни в коем случае не нужно пытаться приукрашивать ситуацию. Это абсолютно недопустимо. Делать вид, что все нормально.
Meanwhile, worsening the pandemic has forced the authorities to turn Moscow's ice rink into a COVID-19 hospital. Nearly about 600 patients were being treated at the temporary facility. Elsewhere in the Russian capital, an exhibition pavilion has also been turned into a COVID-19 facility. And there are facilities for recreational centers for doctors who have to work on a 24-hour shift.
Для врачей в пересменке мы организовали зону отдыха. Зону отдыха, в которой можно как посидеть, почитать книгу, и мы ежедневно подвозим прессу. У нас есть отдельная зона, это зона, где врачи могут отдохнуть, поспать. Наши врачи работают в суточном режиме, поэтому им необходимо в пересменку отдыхать.
All right, now to give us more updates in terms of what is actually unfolding in Russia, we're joined in by Stuart Smith, and he's joining us live from Moscow. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart, for joining us on this broadcast on WION. And let me begin by asking you, what is the situation like in Russia at this point of time that it has got even the President, Vladimir Putin, concerned about the number of high infections in Russia?
Well, it's a record-breaking situation. Compared for the whole year, the current number of deaths is 456 per day, and that is the highest it's ever been. So that gives you a sense of scale of the problem here. 21,000 new infections per day, and indeed, Putin making that announcement, health officials slightly more understated. They're calling the situation tense but under control. But let's take a look at the figures. 84% of COVID-19 beds are occupied. In some regions of Russia, that's even higher at 90%. And in terms of when you compare these statistics with what you see on the street, there is quite some cognitive dissonance there. When you walk outside the streets of Moscow, there are requirements, such as if you're entering businesses or using public transport, you have to wear a mask and you have to wear gloves. And some other measures, children over the age of 10 are still taking part in distance learning, so they're not going into schools, they're using internet and laptops. But apart from that, in the city of Moscow at least, you will see very few other restrictions. That's despite the fact that Moscow's main COVID-19 treatment centre has reached capacity. When you look outside of Moscow at the regions, they tend to be less well funded, and the situation there does appear to be even more dire. When you look at some of the capacity, again reaching 90% COVID-19 hospital capacity outside the regions, and one of them in eastern Siberia has gone into full lockdown and will stay in full lockdown for the next 2 weeks.
Absolutely indeed. At this point of time, is Russia considering imposing more restrictions in places such as Moscow, where the infection rate is very high? Because in Western Europe, like in England and France, there is talk that restrictions will now be increased, and in some places restrictions have in fact been brought back in. But is there at this point of time any kind of speculation that Moscow could see more restrictions in terms of how soon restaurants, pubs and bars could close? In a word, no. We've seen a few more restrictions in terms of
how long establishments can stay open, with places like nightclubs and restaurants having to close at 11 o'clock at night and only opening again the next morning. But if you're asking whether there's going to be another full national lockdown like we saw in the spring, officials here say that's highly unlikely. They would need a huge incentive to do a national lockdown. What they're trying to do is take a more regional and more local approach. They're not convinced about the advantages of a national lockdown with all of the economic and business damage that would cause.
And also, the Russian President Vladimir Putin spoke about the Sputnik V, the vaccine that Russia has come up with against the COVID-19 infection. At this point of time, are there any plans as to how soon this vaccine will be rolled out for the common people?
Well, it's been one of those things that has been soon, a matter of weeks away, a matter of months away, for the past half year. So what I'm about to say, take with a pinch of salt, but the government officials are saying it will be rolled out within the next few weeks. There have been production difficulties with manufacturing the Sputnik V vaccine. Even President Putin admits that that is a tricky thing to do because Russian manufacturing capacity is not where it needs to be to create millions of these doses. And so actually we heard President Putin at the recent BRICS summit talking about how China and India will be helping with the production of the Sputnik V vaccine. But mass production, when it's going to get to the people, it's unlikely before the end of this year, which means it's not likely to be a situation to the ever rapidly increasing number of infections and number of deaths.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Stuart Smith, for joining us from Moscow and getting us all those updates.